Last week we did beading with and cording with the purl and piping foot. And so this week I thought I'd talk about the different feet that we would use to get a similar effect on certain things, and some things that just won't work. So this one is the cording foot, and we'll talk about that. Now, let's go over the different things that we did last week. This was this big, thick cording that I think we've done the cording foot before, so you can go back into the old ones and check. So this would be done with the cording foot, and the problem with this cording foot, it's too big, it's too fat, too thick, it won't fit. Here's the problem with this one. And I'll put the cutter back on. And this is probably gone. I really almost hate to try it because I know it's going to jam. Totally know it. Unlock that blade, and here we go. If I tried to sew this, it's not going to go into that channel easily. With a narrower one, it would work easily, I'm sure. But let's see. Let's pray that this works. I don't think it will, but we'll try. Make the stitch length even longer because this is really straining. It did work. Actually, it worked surprisingly well. I'm in shock. Except we lost our, what did we lose? We lose some loopers. Who's not playing nice? Oh, no, we didn't lose anything. The problem is it's so thick it didn't form a stitch. Why not? It cut nicely, but it did not form a stitch. Let's try a piece. Everything looks like it's threaded, right? Let's just see. No, who's not moving? Nobody's moving. Goodness me. Oh, never mind. You know what I forgot to do? Whenever you have the table in, this has to be down, and it was still down, which meant I was not getting any action from the upper looper. So let's just try that again. Let's see. Yeah, it's working now. Actually, as thick as it is, I'm really in shock. It actually worked well. I'm absolutely dumbfounded. I expected it to jam like there was no tomorrow, but it didn't. Yeah, I'm in shock it worked. Totally in shock. And I'm using a 3-thread, and I've got it a little wider than normal, but it actually worked really well. Okay, now for this, where's another one we did? For this type of piping here, this little narrow stuff, it's not going to work as well. Why? It's too thick. And I'll show you. We'll do a little bit of it. Now we'll just add some to the edge. Cut. And we'll just do it on a piece of this. The problem is I'm doing the same stitch, but this is wider than the channel, so it's actually going to be a little on the big side. It slides around. See, when you try to do a seam with it, or when you put it together, like this, I'm following the channel, but it's not going to give me a close stitch. See, I don't like that. That's what you want, that you want to see some of the ribbon. Oops, sorry. If you want to see that ribbon, that will work just fine. I'm not thrilled with it. It's too narrow. This is going to work better using this tiny purl and piping foot. That worked a lot better. See, this looks far superior to that. Oops, sorry. So this is much nicer than that. That looks yucky. So this, for this type of stuff, no. Now, would it work better if you have a 4 thread? Yes. Why? It's because for the 4 thread, which is the Imagines, and I forgot the new names of them. They got new names of these machines. Is the difference in the channels. For the Evolve or the 8 thread machines, it has what they call a P5, which means that it's supposed to work with cording that is 5 millimeters or less. Well, this stuff is much bigger than 5 millimeters. This is maybe, maybe 8. I mean, so it's bigger, and yet it still worked with that. It would not work, and this one is a little smaller. It's for 3 millimeters, but that goes with the other machine. Mixed reviews on that. I like the control you get with the purl and piping foot, but I also like using the cording foot, because cording feet you can also put zippers on with the cording foot, and that using that, you can't use the 3 millimeter. If you have the Imagine, you have to use the 5. And if you haven't seen how you put on a zipper, and we're going to sew this zipper onto here. So usually with a zipper I would use the wider. So what you would do is move that needle up, center your teeth onto the zipper, and actually I'm going to sew right there. I'm going to move the blade back because I don't really want to cut the tape on the zipper. And you want to stay away from the zipper pull or the top and the bottom end. So, stay away from this. You always want to use a zipper that's at least 4 inches bigger than whatever you're sewing it into. And the other thing too is that you want to make sure it's a nylon coil zipper and not a metal zipper. That will instantly ruin anything on earth. Okay, and so you would just sew one side. Oh, I cut part of the tape, it wasn't far enough. Okay, there's that side. See? And then you would put the other side on. Put the teeth in the same channel. See, it's going to ride right in that channel right here. And there we go. And see, now you got a nice zipper. Now, this, I could not find a way to do an exposed zipper, a fully, where the zipper tape lays on top. It just won't do it because I tried putting it the other way. You can't. You have to sew from the edges, and whenever you're doing a coiled zipper that's exposed, you're sewing on the top so that the zipper is on the top. So you can't do a totally exposed zipper with the serger. That you can do with the purl and piping foot. Okay. Here's some of the things we did with the purl and piping foot on the sewing machine. This one, I don't think you can do this on the serger because of the blade. And yes, you could do a cover stitch over top so that a needle went on either side, but the problem with that is there's no channel. This foot cannot pass under that flat sole of the foot. Just not going to happen. Another one that I don't think would work well is this curving. You're not going to be able to curve and couch. Using the purl and piping foot on the serger is not couching. couching a zigzag over top of another fiber. It's not going to work. Bonnie asked, is that an invisible zipper? No, it is not. That was just a regular nylon coil zipper. An invisible zipper is not going to also work on a serger because either the blade, I guess you could put it on with the chain stitch, but again, you can't get close enough to the needle and have a channel for that for the coil of the zipper to travel like it does. An invisible zipper's got a very specific type of channel, and it just won't work on a serger. The only one that's going to work on a serger is either going to be a lap zipper or, you know, just a center adjusted. Okay, the other thing that the purl and piping foot did is we did some gathering with it. It'll gather on the serger. What it won't do is, I don't think you can do a yo-yo because you got to get very close to it. I don't think you're going to get a yo-yo to work. The regular foot doesn't need anything special, and if you recall how you gather with a sewing machine, with a serger, is that you just take your differential feed. What you do is you put your stitch length all the way up to the longest it will go, and I'm going to put my differential feed all the way up to 2, and then I am just simply going to side. Go slower because this is very soft fabric. Okay, the disadvantage is that you're gathering on the edges, and it tends to want to come off this really soft stuff. But the advantage is that you can pull your needle thread and control the gather a lot more control of the gathering. You could also gather in the center with a cover stitch if you like. And we'll try it again when we put the cover stitch on in a little bit because I have to rethread it for that. Okay, now the purl and piping foot. You're restricted by the size of the purls that you have. And again, I believe it's 5 millimeter because there's the edge so you can see this. See how it's got the channel? Your beads go, here's beads, here's some beads. The beads would go under here and over here, okay? They have to be able to, they have to be able to fit and ride in this channel comfortably. This does not. These beads are too big. So what I would, now these are, I think this is the extent of as large as you can get. And why I'm saying that, because I'm not going to undo this. These are those real pearls, which I'm reluctant to sew again. I'm going to take these off and put a new clasp, because this was actually a bracelet of mine. And this is pushing it. Well, here, let me get a seam ripper and take these pearls off. Okay. Let me take these pearls off and let's see what happens. Take them off of here and let's see if it'll pass underneath here easily. We'll know in a minute. Now for this I'm going to use just a regular stitch, but I'm going to use a long stitch length. Differential feed back to neutral, and let me start this here. Oops. Okay, and I want that pretty wide. Now you could also, oh, sorry. Let me see if I can't get this under here. String it under. It's a little more work to string them in here too. Raise the presser foot, it's up. Ah. There. I had to get that looper out of the way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the presser foot down and I'm going to hand do 1 or 2 stitches because now it won't fall out. Okay. Granted, these are not my Japanese pearls, but whoops, came out. Yeah, I think they're too big. No, it's working. It did work. Okay. Actually, that did a decent job on them once I got the stitching to start. It did a decent job on that. I got a little bit of pulling, but it was manageable. The other thing too is this is only going, with this foot you can only put your stitches or your pearls on the edges of the fabric unless you do a flat lock, and we'll do one of those in just a second. So, but yeah, we could do a flat lock, and to change this to a flat lock, I just have to change this threading path so that it shares. I'm going to do a 3-thread flat lock, and I'm going to check my trusty guide because I told you guys I've got a mental block against flat locking, and I have to look it up every single time. That's why I can't remember it. Okay, I'm doing a 3-thread flat lock narrow. Okay, stitch selector at D. Okay. So, we'll do another thing to put something in the center. And I'll use these as beads because I can use this as a bead. It does not have to be a pearl. It can be it can do sequins, you can do, this is a flat lock. And the flat lock, I'm going to lock my blade down because I don't want to cut, and I'm going to position my fabric so that it is just barely catching the fold. So I'll let it, well, here, I'll put this going first. And now I'm going to do a stitch or two to hold it so that it doesn't fall. I'm going to run this all the way up to the needle. Close the door, and then here goes the flat lock. There we go, till it gets started. Okay, granted this is white thread. I would not be using white thread with this. I would probably switch to monofilament. And then you open that up for a flat lock. Not nearly as pretty. Not at all. Not totally thrilled with that at all. Again, to me, that's going to look better couched on. And that's just using the purl and piping foot. Same thing with all these that go in the middle. They're just not going to sit nice and flat for you unless you're really good and you really only catch the edge. Now you can make it look better by putting monofilament into your loopers and into your needle and realize it's not going to go through this part easily. So do a thread cradle. I think we've talked about thread cradle a few times. So yes, you could use that. Let's see. Anything else? Any other fibers? Or, yeah, I don't think it would do this nicely either. It's not going to do those. You could put in more than one bead, one set of beads into the beading foot right here. But the problem is that you're gonna spend all your time just untwisting these and untwisting because they're just gonna rumble and tumble around. So I don't think you're gonna get a pretty stitch with that at all. So anyway, you have a great weekend. If I don't see you Saturday, keep sewing.